I think the scarier part was looking to the future, how I was on my current trajectory versus the unknown of this whole thing that I've created. That scared me more when I was sitting in the office looking down the hallway and all of my 70-year-old colleagues were still in the office at 8 p.m. And it was like, is this it? And so I knew that that wasn't what I wanted. And so I had to figure out a way, scary or not, to like get off that trajectory.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, a podcast designed to encourage women to take their back of the napkin idea, launch it, and grow a wildly successful business. I founded We Wild Women, an entrepreneur training company, to help women like you, moms and go-getters, start the business of their dreams the right way. Not too long ago, I launched my $1 million agency when I was 8 months pregnant with my first son and welcomed my second son only 11 months later. So I know how to grow businesses and babies. Join me as I teach you the guiding principles and how to start and grow your business while overcoming the voice in your head screaming, "It's not possible." These raw and funny episodes will make you feel like you're right here with me, sipping on some Pinot and leaving more confident saying, "Yes, I can." Every episode leaves you with some action items and a real kick in the ass to get started. Here on Into the Wild, you'll hear from other trailblazing entrepreneurs and experts because I know that the best advice is from someone who's successfully done it before. So put your headphones on, grab a cup of coffee, and tune in because Into the Wild is about to begin.
Subscribe to my mom's podcast.
Hey, wild women. My next guest is a biz lawyer and the founder of the Contracts Market, an e-commerce shop where she provides legal contract templates for entrepreneurs and her own law firm called Wild Coast Law. Her desire for a wilder life fueled by a healthy obsession with business podcasts led her away from the traditional legal route and into the world of entrepreneurship over 2 years ago. Now she uses her 10 plus years of corporate legal experience to help entrepreneurs protect their businesses while also having time to explore the beautiful Vancouver Island where she calls home now. So please welcome the incredible Jaime Bell.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Come on down. I love it. We were just jamming on the use of the term wild and how it's just threaded in our life. From my business name to your business name. To
old blog names. Yeah.
Yes, it's everywhere. It's wild. I love it. So we're going to start with some quick questions so the audience gets a chance to get to know you faster. You ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where are you from?
I am originally from a small town north of Toronto called Orangeville.
No way.
And actually just a little bit smaller than that. It's called Mono Center, but no one knows where that is.
I do because I'm from North Bay, Ontario.
Oh.
So I used to drive through all the time.
Yeah. That's where
crazy.
I grew up. Yeah.
You're like this little nugget just outside of Barrie then, essentially.
Yeah. I grew up on 300 acres. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Which is the size of the UK.
Basically.
Yeah. What's one of your favorite quotes?
One of them that I always check in on is get into the habit of asking yourself, does this support the life I'm trying to create?
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. I feel like it's a good check-in for big decisions, small decisions, and little things along the way that often gear us in different directions.
Yeah, no, that's really good. What is one of the best pieces of business advice you ever received?
Stop caring about what other people think.
Okay, just like that.
Yeah, because I think moving from corporate law into entrepreneurship, if I start thinking about what my past colleagues are thinking when they watch my reels or how I show up on social media or how I'm disrupting a traditional service, I could get really spun out about that. So I just have to let it go.
Yeah, it's so true. And we have those moments of like reflection when we're about to publish something and all we think about, there's always like one or two people that come up in those moments. It's not everybody you've ever worked with. It's like we unconsciously tried to impress these people for some reason. And so when we go to publish this content, it's like, oh, are you doing this to like show them that you're better than them? Are you doing this to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just get nervous.
For me, what helps is remembering who you're helping, which is not the jerk from law school.
Right.
So, I mean, if he's listening, I hope he gets something out of this podcast, but probably not.
You never know. We'll send him the link to the episode.
Yeah, totally. I'll put it on LinkedIn.
So what's one of your biggest business mistakes?
Thinking I needed a partner along the way when I think in hindsight, I lacked confidence to do it myself. Yeah. I wish I had just been confident enough to go it alone from the beginning.
Cool. And are you doing this alone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're confident now.
I am confident in doing what I'm doing. And actually, I've realized I work better solo, but with a team that I choose to support me. So I do have a lot of support in the form of contractors that I've hired, but not with a partner. And I mean that in the legal sense. And so that's one of the conversations I have a lot of the time with entrepreneurs that cross paths with me. And just thinking that if you are getting into a partnership with someone business related, think of it like a marriage. Make sure you talk about all the things that might go wrong along the way before you get too far down the road.
Yeah. So I was actually talking with a friend before this recording about this because she was doing customer discovery calls. And one of the questions she asked was about previous business partners. And how long my courtship was with them. And I'm like, oh, geez. It was just fascinating. She's like, there's like this kind of this success factor based on how long you worked together on projects and did things before you actually became business partners. It was interesting.
Yeah. I think the discovery period has to be a long runway. And I think it's a good idea to really get into the details about what that looks like, who's responsible for what, how are decisions going to be made, the way that you do things. Do they align? Do you bring different things to the table, or are you both really fixated on doing the same things in the business? And just all these kind of things will really help flesh out those relationships.
Yeah, it's so true. See, and like the moments when you have to be doing this is like when you're wearing your rose-colored glasses and everything is exciting at the beginning, this honeymoon phase. You're like, no, we don't even need a partnership.
When you're like dreaming of your brand colors and your Instagram, and then, but when the money comes up or bigger decisions have to be made, it's check-in time.
Yeah, so it should almost just start with those hard decisions. Like I did by saying I wanted 51% of the company. And I was like, hey, I'm just telling you what I want. It's not, I'm not telling you it's right or wrong or it's going to happen.
Yeah. I have a big meeting with people in my law firm when people come to me starting to want to have a partnership. I send them a huge list of questions that they have to go home, like marriage counseling, and talk about together. And it is not surprising to me how many partners come back to me and say, you know what, we're not on the same page about a lot of this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm really happy we talked about it first. And I hate to be the deal maker versus a breaker in a lot of situations. But I think that it saves a lot of heartache, money, time, resources if you have those conversations.
Oh, first. Yeah. And we can find this. Is this online on your website, or is it when people work with you?
But I should. Good blog post idea. All right.
There you go. It's a great blog post. Okay. And then one last quick question is, what is a book that you could recommend today?
I am working through for the second time Rachel Rogers' We Should All Be Millionaires. And I think it really dives into a lot of the money mindset things that are programmed into our brains as women. Yeah. So that's a big one.
Yeah, she's great. I'll put that book in the show notes so you can link to it. Yeah, she published that, last year or the year before? 2 years ago now.
I think it was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, like spring last year.
Cool. All right. So I want to know what inspired you to start your business contracts market?
Yeah, so there's a nice lofty reason and then a more financial reason, to be honest. So the first one is I was working in corporate traditional law, doing real estate and a lot of business law. I didn't like it. I almost left law, to be honest. And then I wanted to figure out who I wanted to serve. I ended up really finding the business and like entrepreneur community one that I wanted to figure out a way to infiltrate. And so I started doing just legal work for small business owners. And then really 2 reasons came out of that. I was turning away a lot of business because people early in the stages of business couldn't afford traditional legal services. $800, $1,000 for a contract was just outside the realm of budget. Fair enough. So I was getting my energy zapped by not being able to help these people who I really wanted to help. So there was that reason for starting Contracts Market. It's a more affordable and accessible way. And also, I don't want a big team. And as a lawyer, it's really hard to scale a business with how much touch points I have to have with each of my clients. So Contracts Market allowed me to take all of the specific expertise that I had helping different entrepreneurs along the way, put it into a product that is a great, great starting point for people starting their businesses or scaling, and then also have the excitement of starting a business that is a digital product-based business versus a legal business, and have that creative outlet to do all the things that I like doing as an entrepreneur. So there's a few reasons.
It's so handy too. I love the raison d'être. But yes, managing people, that's tough. It's
like managing lawyers. Like, I don't want to grow my firm really. And I don't want to be hiring a ton of admins and paralegals and stuff. It's just not like, I like working in law and the people I'm working with, but it's not something I want to scale. Whereas a product-based business like Contracts Market is. Right. That's much more exciting to me.
Right. And then it's also quicker for the customer to get the information they need. It's more affordable.
Yeah. And you know that sound on TikTok or Instagram that's like, what's something you'll get a lot of hate for?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think everybody needs customized legal advice when they're starting their business. Like, there's a lot of people like coaches or copywriters or graphic designers who just need a good contract. Yeah. They're not doing something completely unique and outside the box that cannot be delivered in a template form that will protect them. And then at the point that issues come up, hire a lawyer and you're already a little bit further along, and you can spend your legal budget to something that is more helpful for your business to take you to the next level.
And you can also, because these are like more generic templates, but you can make them your own. And if you need a second opinion, you can send it to your lawyer and they can review it.
More affordable to have a lawyer look at your contract.
Yeah.
And all mine are designed for specific industries, but it's a lot more affordable. I hate the word cheap, but it's more affordable to have someone review something than to start from scratch.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like I did that with some of my contracts too, was just repurpose old ones, update them, tweak them, and then send it to my lawyer for review. Yeah. And it was like, I'm like, I need this by tomorrow. Then they're like, yeah, sure. No problem. We have time for this.
Such a lame lawyer thing to say, but contracts are living, breathing documents. So like, it's gross when it comes out of my mouth, but it's true. And so when issues come up with your clients, it's totally within your realm to go in and amend your own contract to try and nip those issues in the bud before they happen again. So just because you have started with a template doesn't mean it doesn't change over time.
Right. It is living, breathing document.
Living, breathing. Oh, how lame.
Okay. So what were some of the mindset shifts that you needed to make when shifting from traditional law, barf, to practicing your own business and starting up Contracts Market?
Yeah, there were a few big ones. And I actually hired a coach who works with lawyers to help with these. But the biggest one was, it's a little cliche, but imposter syndrome. You don't learn business skills in law school. You learn how to interpret the law. And so for me to think, how am I going to start a business and how will I market this and all these kind of things, I can't do it alone. Like, I felt very in my bones when I wanted this business to start, because I'd been thinking about it for a long, long time. So that was a huge one to overcome. For me, just starting the drafting, thinking about it, moving, taking little steps helped me get through that imposter syndrome. And it still creeps up. Sometimes people send me DMs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what the answer to that is. So like, I'll get back to you. But you just have to trust that yourself and your knowledge and all the experience that you have. And I think the other big one, which I feel like we talk about a little bit when we're taking that big leap from a corporate job into our own business, is just the money. I mean, I had saved up money to have a buffer before I started this business full time, which I was happy that I had thought about leading up to the time that I was launching, because it's not like you see on the internet sometimes, like you hit launch and it's a 6-figure business, right? Whatever that means.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's 100% a lie. I mean, feel very privileged that my business has grown quite quickly, but at the same time, it does not replace where I would have been as a lawyer right now if I stayed in traditional practice. So getting over that, because one of my values is financial security. So that was something I had to really figure out how to feel okay with that instability for that period of time. And not just like I've got past this, like every month we're like, okay, starting from zero now, like let's hope those Shopify notifications come in,
like refresh.
Yeah. So those are the big ones. And then also like, who am I to be in this entrepreneur community? Who am I to be reaching out and saying, I know what's best for your business? Yeah, there's a few things that pop up for sure.
Yeah.
Even on these podcasts, it's like, why do you want to talk to me sometimes?
Oh, that's interesting. Because I reached out to you, right? Yeah. Did I reach out to you? How did it work? I can't remember.
I think we just connected on Instagram somehow.
Yeah, that's true. We did. That was it. Instagram is like the best business dating app. Find like the best people to be on my show. So I was going to say, the imposter syndrome thing is so interesting because like the way that I like to interpret it now is not because I'm worried about what other people think, but I tell myself that if I feel this way, it's because I care, because I matter. It's because people are paying attention. So yes, I have a message. So when I say, okay, I'm feeling this feeling of imposter syndrome where people are going to judge me and comment, they are going to anyway, and you can't change that. Yeah. But it's because I care about the message I'm sharing. And like oftentimes I fail and it really doesn't matter. But that's so important. Just like the mindset shifts too. Because like you must have been giving up so much with your position to do this. So you would have had to believe in yourself a lot more than what you were doing in traditional law to be able to make that leap.
Yeah, I think it also comes back to that quote that you asked me what was my favorite is I think the scarier part was looking to the future, how I was on my current trajectory versus the unknown of this whole thing that I've created. That scared me more when I was sitting in the office looking down the hallway and all of my 70-year-old colleagues were still in the office at 8 p.m. And it was like, is this it? And so I knew that wasn't what I wanted. And so I had to figure out a way, scary or not, to like get off that trajectory.
So then when you decided on this business, who was the first person you had a serious conversation about this idea?
Well, probably all the entrepreneurs along the way. Like I kept saying, I wish I just had this template ready for you to go. And they're like, I would buy it in an instant, popping off ideas off clients along the way. And then probably my partner at the time, or no, I guess we were together now, the same one. And my mom, like we're all very close. And so it was just kind of like, okay, you got to do it. And I feel like I had so much support of like, you're not happy doing what you're doing. So what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
And my baseline for that is always kind of death. So I just feel like that's not going to happen. So
a smaller pill to digest.
Yeah.
And like the opposite is death. I can do this.
Yeah. I can make this real.
But like if you actually think about that though, that perspective of death, it's like, it could be a big reason why you're doing it. Cause like life isn't finite.
I was dying slowly on the inside working downtown Toronto.
I can picture it. How exhilarating it was though when you were young and starting, right? Hungry and energy. And then you're like...
It's funny. I didn't have that. So my whole mindset, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. Okay. And I always had this mindset like, this isn't it anyway, but just keep going with it. So I actually didn't have that hunger. I'm not super motivated by money. I actually get off more on like the unknown. So entrepreneurship comes a lot more naturally to me than thinking that route.
Well, the law is very much unknown. Anyway.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
So you want to grow your business, but you're stuck. Maybe it's your lack of organization or the sheer overwhelm of doing it all. Maybe it's because you have kids and you wonder how you'll be able to manage parenting and entrepreneuring. It's a good thing you're tuned in because if this is you, I have a solution. It's my private coaching. This program is designed to help female entrepreneurs get unstuck, inspired, and motivated to grow their dream business. All you have to do is go to wewildwomen.com/coaching That's www.wewildwomen.com/coaching and check it out. When you click the button, book a free discovery call, you'll be prompted to schedule a really fun chat with me. So I say do it. Best case scenario is we will make a plan to crush your business goals this year. And I'd love to hang out with you. So go ahead, go to wewildwomen.com/coaching. So why did you want to become a lawyer to begin with? Like, what age were you when you're like, that's the thing for me?
I think it was one of those things where it was access to information at the time. I mean, small town, there wasn't the internet. I know maybe some of your listeners don't remember that time, but it was kind of like accountant, teacher, doctor. Those are your options. I didn't know there was like marketing roles or anything like that. And a big push and like narrative growing up was like, make sure that you can support yourself. And so I knew that being a lawyer seemed to be a job you could support yourself at, no matter what happened to you along the way. That's might be true. It might not be. I'm not sure. And then I got interested in it. And then it's like a hamster wheel. There are so many different things that you need to check the box on your way to become a lawyer that there's not a lot of other time to consider the alternative.
Right.
So yeah, the hamster wheel, I was interested in it, but I definitely didn't think to the point where, okay, you've gotten to a good law school, you've passed the bar, you've passed the LSAT, whatever you need to do. But that moment when you've arrived as an associate in a law firm and they hand you a stack of files, like review this, it's like, wow, I worked really hard for this. I never really thought of that moment when it was like, okay, well, you've arrived. But then the hamster wheel keeps on turning. It's okay, well, now you need to do really a great job in your first year job. Now you want to be a partner, you have to work really hard. Now you're a partner, you need to prove yourself to become an equity partner. It's like, where does it stop and where does the joy set in?
When you're 2 feet in a grave, that's when it stops.
Yeah. And
when you actually, that's a good point. When you think of the logistics of things too, like my husband is notorious for being like, let's travel here and do this. And then we'll come back and we'll go here and like, or, maybe on our way to this place, we could stop over here for a few days to visit these people and then keep going. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great coming from someone who all they have to do is pack their own suitcase.
Yeah.
And when you actually sit back and you look at the logistics, like what does it actually feel like to be at the airport, to go from here to there and then stay there for 2 days with 2 kids, then meet up. And like, if it doesn't add up and it doesn't fill your love tank, then just don't do it. So like, so I suppose you know what your first real day on the job would be as a lawyer, right? But to stand there and accept this stack of files, you're like, okay, this maybe wasn't it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, hey, where's the work?
Yeah. And where's the fun? And like, why isn't this like Suits? And why don't I look like Meghan Markle? Like,
I know.
So, it's not what it's like.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could imagine. And you were downtown Toronto too. Small town girl, downtown Toronto.
Yeah. Making it in a city world.
Yeah. Just a small town girl. Yeah.
More like city mouse, country mouse.
Relatively close though. It's not that far.
Yeah.
So let's talk about contracts for entrepreneurs. So I want to know, I have a business idea. I'm doing this thing, customer discovery, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my business. What is the first contract that I really need to think about?
Okay, let's get the boring one out of the way. So if you have a website, you need a privacy policy. You have to tell your users now when they come to your website how you're collecting their data. That's the boring one. You need it. It's a lot and there's a lot of fines if you don't have that one. So
how expensive are these fines?
They can be up to, for a small business owner, you're looking for like $10,000 or penalties or things like that. For bigger corporations, you're looking into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there's a lot of privacy laws if you have users in the EU or in California. Those are the 2 strictest laws.
California.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So you need to tell people why you're collecting data, all these kinds of different things. Like a tip for your listeners right now is when you're asking for email addresses or any kind of information on your website, collect the least amount of data possible. Don't ask for addresses or phone numbers or things like that. Just collect the bare minimum that you need. Yeah. And then you have less issues if there's a data breach. So let's get that out of the way. Then if you're a service-based business, then I really recommend a client contract. Your client contract for delivering the services is the one that's going to be the moneymaker in your business. It's the one that if you're on this discovery call with your client, the follow-up would be to send them your form of contract so that you can understand what that relationship is going to look like between you and your client. And if you are just starting out and you're bootstrapping your business, and I just want you to think about what are the things that are most important to your relationship with your client, so that if bad things come up or issues arise, that you can look to your contract to support you in that relationship. So things like being very, very specific about the actual services that you're going to provide. Like, be specific about these things, because the more services you provide that you weren't anticipating, the less money you're making at the end of the day, because you're spending more time for the same amount of money. Payment terms, these things people usually get pretty okay, but where it gets a little cloudier is they forget things like maybe there's certain deliverables you need from your client before you can actually start the work. Yes. And if you're on a timeline and your client doesn't get you those deliverables, like you're a copywriter, for instance, and you need the pages or certain information in order to start the copy, but they need that copy delivered by the end of the month and they don't get it to the third week in the month, then you're already not managing your workflow very well and you're under pressure, and maybe you don't work well under pressure. So set yourself up for success. What kind of things do you need from your client? What might your client need from you to get started? Thinking about cancellation and rescheduling. If you are in a line of work that might be affected by COVID, you really need to nail down these clauses about what happens if you can't have the wedding at the venue, or what happens if you're a photographer and you get COVID, but your client needs those photos for their website that they want to launch at the end of the month and you're not there to do the photos. Do you have a backup plan? What does all that look like? And then what happens to the retainer you've collected if somebody cancels halfway through like all these kind of things. So sit down when you're thinking about your client contract and think, okay, this is the list of things I expect from my client, and these are the types of things that my client would expect from me. A really great contract will actually answer a lot of the questions your client didn't even know they had about the services. Who owns the intellectual property that you're creating? Like if you're a graphic designer, who owns the logo at the end of the day? What can your client do with the photos that you take of them for their branding session? All these kind of things. So I really look at client contracts. The best time to implement them is actually right at the beginning of your business, because it will flush out your client processes from the start and probably make you think about issues that might come up or how you actually want to collect payment, milestones, all the money at the beginning, all the money at the end. It makes you think through the whole client relationship as you're figuring out what your contract looks like.
I love that. And there was an episode that I did. I'm just looking up what episode number it was. Her name was Renee too. So it was a few episodes ago. She's like an implementation operations person. And one of the things she does is help customers create a better onboarding flow for new customers.
Yeah.
And going through it. And like there's really cool like software out there. There's like Honeybook or whatever it's called.
I use Debsato in my law firm.
And you can just,
yeah.
And like part of that process is those contracts too. You can't move on to the next step unless you've signed the contract.
Yeah. And as you shouldn't be. It's really interesting to me it's painful for me to hear when people have been so excited, working together that they miss the contract step. And then an issue comes up and I'm like, okay, well, send me your contract so I can look at it and we can try and navigate from there, because that's your baseline. Like, well, we didn't sign the contract. I'm like, okay.
I know. I know. What do you say in those moments? I coached so many women that do that. I was like, well, you didn't have an agreement in place. So what do you think you're supposed to do?
Yeah, it's a really hard conversation because I'm sure you're like me. You just want the best for everybody involved and to help move through. Like there's not too many clients that I work with that I'm like, you know what, let's sue them. I mean, there's instances where that is a good course of action, but in 90% of the time it's not. So we're all in a client relationship-based business, whether you're selling products or you're delivering services. So let's think about how we can keep the relationship amicable and happy at the end of the day.
I always say first thing you spend money on in your business is you outsource accounting and legal. Because unless you're an accountant or unless you're a lawyer, there's no sense doing it yourself. You will screw up.
And there's also no shame, and please don't be embarrassed if you don't know what to do about getting the legal side of your business together.
No, just go talk to Jaime.
You're not a lawyer. Like,
she knows the answers.
I feel like I get all these messages, or my first few moments on a client call is like, oh, I don't really understand this. I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to send you my contract. I'm like, well, you didn't go to law school. You don't have all this legal experience. Like, I don't know how to write good copy. I don't expect to do it as well as you did. That's your zone of genius.
I can't transplant a new heart into your chest for you because I'm no doctor.
Or take a photograph worth anything. So, stop beating yourself up over this. This is why experts are here to help you no matter what area of your business you need that support.
If you become more emotionally aware of where you're not strong and just save the time and that worry, and just be like, okay, this sucks, fix it. Then you can just move on in business a lot faster.
Yeah. And also once you understand a little bit from an expert, this is my favorite part, is when I hear, oh, I feel so much more confident in my business now because I know my contract legally protects me. I feel more confident to scale and grow my business.
That's so true.
Like, that's what it's all about.
Oh my gosh. I never even thought about that. It's so true too.
Yeah. It's actually, when we're talking about mindset, like if you don't feel comfortable because you don't feel protected, or you're worried someone's going to steal your content, which might happen, or your client's not going to pay you, you live in this limbo of not wanting to grow and scale because there's fear that's underlying all of this.
And I will say this too about contracts is they're not ironclad. Doesn't mean no. And I've been sued for wrongful dismissal, as I've alluded to in many episodes. And I've had people, when I ran my PR agency, terrible clients who refused to pay the bills because they weren't happy with how fast or slow we were going. And there's been instances where I got like 10 cents on the dollar, or was like, can you just help me cover costs? And even though they signed a contract, because in those instances, how much it would cost me time-wise or to hire a lawyer to go after what they owe me just wasn't worth it in the end.
Yeah.
And so just know contracts don't necessarily make bad things good. But I will say
starting point.
It's a very good starting point. And I will say this though, at the end of the day, if you're the person that is following a contract or having people sign a contract and you're following the rules and they're not, and stuff happens, it's karma. It is karma. Because that one client in particular who refused to pay us, even though we were doing more work, harder work than any one of our customers, it ended up coming where they tried to work with somebody that I know and they tried to hire him as a coach for something. And then when I found out that they were trying to work with him, I said, do you remember the story of the company that had me lose sleep for like 2 weeks because I needed to pay my team? That's them. And they never worked together. Yeah. And I was like, so it's karma. It comes back to you.
It's a very small community.
It is. Yeah. Just don't do crap things onto other people. Just be a good person.
Yeah. I get annoyed when I hear that small business owners aren't paying other small business owners. I'm like, we're all just out here trying to eat. Let's just be kind, respect each other's businesses and act nicely. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. So this is great. And we have a couple questions. So how can people protect their work online? Other than creating NFTs. Don't post it.
Yeah. The only way you can 100% protect your work online is not to post it. Unfortunately, that's not the reality that we live in. So your terms of use on your website is a good spot to let people know how they can or can't use your content that you post. So if you post free resources or blog content or digital downloads or anything like that, it's a good spot to let them know that you're the owner of that and there will be consequences if they steal it. All right, is it ironclad? 100% not, but it's a good starting point. There are situations that I've been part of more recently and that have been pretty high profile where people's community actually bought a product from a competitor and it was the same product as what my client was selling. And so that was really... There's no internet police except that your loyal followers on the internet. So I'm hearing more of those things happening. As far as photographs and things like that, don't post your highest quality images. Things get shared. We all know the trolls and people don't listen to their DMs when you ask them to take it down. put a watermark on there. It might ruin your Instagram feed, but it's a risk assessment at that point.
I have a quick question about that. Okay. I'm sure it's in the fine print of Instagram, which nobody reads. But say I take a picture on Instagram with my phone and post it on Instagram. Do I technically own that picture, or does now Instagram own that picture?
I have to go and look at that. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I mean, even if they do, like, what are they doing with it?
Hope nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I can go and look and follow up, and you can post in the show notes. I've never had a client want to go after Instagram. So
yeah, no, not worth it. Okay. So let's talk about like cease and desist stuff. Like, I feel like this is like next level. So you say somebody reposts something that's yours on Instagram and you ask them in DMs to go take it down. They don't do it and you keep pursuing it. The next level would be,
if they don't do it after your first response, I mean, it depends. If they're just posting a photo and it is what it is, like, and they don't take it down, you have to decide, are you willing to go the lawyer route? Because if you've asked one request and they don't listen or they ignore you, it's time to lawyer up. There's a really specific process that you should be following for cease and desist letters. So at that point, don't get the one that your friend lent you that they used in their business. Go hire an intellectual property lawyer. I actually outsource all of that stuff to another lawyer that I work with closely because it's very specific. Okay. And if you're claiming copyright infringement, it has to be pretty darn close to the product that you're offering. So in this instance I was talking about earlier, it was a PDF Excel spreadsheet of like Instagram prompts, for instance. And they were like 98% the same prompts. That's a really good.
They couldn't even.
It was so bold. It was very bold. And so that's a really good instance where she probably had a really great case for copyright infringement. It's really hard to say like what that line is. But at that point, you really need to hire a lawyer because it's a process. Do not go slandering people on the internet because you don't need a defamation claim against you. Hire a lawyer, follow what they tell you to do, and go from there.
And be nice.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get mad.
And the other thing is take a stand because you might be having a product being stolen, which I had to put my foot in my mouth in this instance because this product, I brought another lawyer on and said, my client's having her product stolen and she sells it for $27 on the internet. And the other lawyer was like, well, why do you care about a $27 product? And she's like, I sold it 300,000 times.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like, take a stand on your product and know that if you're losing money, it's probably worth it to protect it.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, it's so tough. And I've had to lawyer up before and it just seems so like, even in the process, you feel like you're guilty, even though you're the one that's being taken advantage of and you like feel like it looks bad on you. It's like, no, it doesn't.
No, you're protecting your blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
And when you're hiring a lawyer, if you ever have to, you don't have to go with the first one that you talk to.
No.
And so just know that these processes can be kind of drawn out sometimes.
Yes.
And so make sure that you feel like you trust your lawyer, like you have a good relationship. They understand your business. Obviously, this case was one where the lawyer that I recommended didn't understand the concept of how important a digital product can be and how scalable they are. So I felt bad in that instance. But make sure that you work with a lawyer that understands your business and respects it.
Yeah,
I've had that feedback a lot.
And understanding the process, especially if you've never had to go through any of this. I hope no one has to go through it, but it's just inevitable if you're going
to business. If you're in business long enough, you're going to hire a lawyer at some point. And it's also not always a negative situation. Like most 90% of the clients that I have come through my door are hiring me. I'm like a luxury for their business. I'm helping them get to the next level in their business. So if you're in business long enough, we're going to cross paths at some point. So
totally. And these processes, going back to being drawn out too, is a lot of it's done on purpose. You don't necessarily want to just solve things very quick. And so just know that hopefully you don't have to, but in the event that you come up with some of these issues, it can be a lengthy process and just know that's just part of the journey.
Yeah. And have check-ins with your lawyer and make sure that they're on top of it and all these kind of things. So it's never a bad thing to be the squeaky wheel.
I love it. Okay. So I have one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh, good one. I think just living life on your own terms. At this point, I've decided it's my own life, so I need to do it my own way. And yeah, not getting caught up in comparison, taking the dogs for a walk at the beach in the morning because I can, just enjoying life and all the weird little bumps and quirks along the way and just embracing it.
I love it. Okay, so if people want to go and find you online, where's the best place?
Yeah, I'm hanging out, doing things on Instagram over at the Contracts Market. Yeah, that's the best place to find me. And my email list is always good to be part of, just to hear what's going on, keep up to date on contracts and sales and all those kind of things.
Cool. Well, it's been amazing having you, Jaime. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Renee.
So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time: the best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.